Hey, what's going on? It's Hilltop. Let's talk about whether or not animals have their own personalities, or are they all the same? So I'm at the park and I've seen a lot of dogs. So therefore, when I see a dog, I say to myself, is that dog the same as every other dog? Are they going to behave the same, act the same? And the answer is, of course, no. They all have their own conditioning. So the similarity between the dogs is because of an underlying nature, and perhaps domesticated animals have a similarity, but they're not all the same, and they will have subtle differences in how they approach their owner, how they appreciate their owner, how they use the bathroom, how they decide to wait around to use the bathroom. Like, there's all these subtle facets that make the animal unique. It's not like all animals are the same or act the same just because they're the same species or same subspecies or something. So that's like a really interesting point. What this gets into is that the nature of a soul. We often think a soul is the sign of the cause of the uniqueness of a person. So would the animal have a unique soul? That's another question to get into. But you would have to make certain assumptions about the metaphysics, the spirituality, in order to come to the answer. But the simple answer is that on a scientific level, you would not treat the same dogs the same, or you shouldn't, because they're fundamentally different. They'll have a similar nature, so you may have a similar way of treating them, but you will cater to their own personal needs. There will be unique needs. The question is it different than like humans? I would say humans are the most complex species. So yeah, there is a certain level of truth to, animals and humans are in a completely different ballgame. But at the same time, we said that about monkeys. We said all monkeys look alike. And, people who are racist or xenophobic used to say the same thing about Hasidic people or black people or Spanish people or Japanese people. Or Asian people. They just say, oh, some Asian, I can't tell them apart. But if you're among the Asian culture, the subtleties in the face are so radically different. Just we're not used to it. So too with monkeys. Monkeys see the subtleties in the face as radically different. And we as humans don't pay attention to them or pick up on them or treat it as important, so we therefore let it go. So this idea to say that we're not similar to animals is a fallacy in terms of that particular aspect of uniqueness. Just like humans are unique, so too animals are unique in who they are. But you also have to factor in that they're in a lower stage of development, evolutionarily. And therefore, psychologically, they're not thinking about the individual, they're thinking about the survival of the species. That's important, but the survival of the species on a very basic level, like who can hit the lion the strongest so that they can defend themselves in a pack. That's how they're thinking, that's how they're operating. In the human world, survival is important, and even in the early stages of humans, it's important. But as you progress, you start to have the ability to be at ease because you create cultures, you create caste systems or hierarchical, what's the word? It's something like a caste system, like you click classes. So once you have the ability to take it easy and build classes, that's when you start entering into all the problems that humans face. Animals could also have classes, but it's different. So once you exit out of the survival system, then classes becomes more of a thing. Even for, I think, rats, they found that the ones who escaped to the top where all the rice was, the kernels they were the highest class, and they didn't let anyone get in there. But they died early, so it's similar to humans. So you could say animals and humans are similar in that, we need our primal instincts of hunting and survival to be in play. And so we factor that in, and that's why we have competition in business and stuff like that. But there is a way to transcend that, so don't get lost in it. Just don't forget that the survival mechanisms are important. But all this teaches you is that we're very similar. But you can't argue the development of the brain. And the development of the brain takes place probably as we get stronger and need to worry about survival as much. Once we have a high enough level of faculties, we don't need to worry about surviving with brute force, but we can start thinking with our mind. And usually it started with the muscles, and then the mind starts to develop. So, and the opposite will also be true. If you don't work out your muscles, then then other enemies can outsmart you, but it doesn't really work that way. Usually if you have the intelligence, you can find a way to keep yourself in a house to protect from predators, and that's what humans do. But the whole thing is that, yeah, humans are not so different to animals, but except the development from evolution that takes place over thousands of years, or millions of years even. Once we feel dominant, then the mind starts creating pathways more easily. And with this logic, could you construct an entity, a human being? So you would, it'll be based on previous DNA, sure, right? The DNA will have the same neural connections or similar neural connections as the predecessors, and so, yeah, certainly. But all right, we covered why, whether or not animals are similar to humans. No, the original question was whether or not animals whether or not animals were unique. And the answer is they are unique. Don't be fooled and think that they're not unique because they're lower down the psychological development, in biological development. They treat each other as very unique, but the uniqueness is less significant even to them because they're worried more about survival, and survival takes precedence over the unique qualities of in individuals. But the question is, would that create less unique creatures? I don't think so. I think the DNA, I think the uniqueness is present, and yeah, it's always present. The way they bark, the when they choose to bark, there's certain overall truths about how a species will behave, but amongst their regular behavior, they will decide, or they will develop in such a way that will influence how they decide to use those instincts.